Tonight we're going to be talking about food security, hunger in our county, and some new models for us to think about. What can we do as individuals to not only think about this problem, but actually do something about it? We have two wonderful speakers, and the very first one I'm going to bring up, and Sandquist, are you here? Right here. Round of applause. He is a woman for all seasons. She is our county supervisor, right? In fact, the head of the supervisors this year. Are you? Chair, supervisor, chair. And dietitian at Hy-Vee. I always thought that was really an amazing thing. Hy-Vee would kind of shoo people away from the stuff that isn't good for them and send them to the stuff that is good for them. And this lady helps. And she is also a farmer. She and her husband farm, and they are. I'll let her tell her farming story, but Dee is one of our very favorite people, former board member for Sustainable Living Coalition. So Dee, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. So the farming story is I grew up here and went to Fairfield High School, went to Iowa State, became a dietitian. And there wasn't a job for me here at that time. This was in the 70s, so even though I wanted to come back, I couldn't. So lived away from here for a while. Then 10 years this year, I moved back to help my aging parents and the family farm. And so now they are both gone, but we're keeping the farm going, and it's in about its 6th version. And first ancestor came over from Sweden, didn't have shoes in the 1840s, so it's just really meaningful to be here and help take care of the land, and that's why we came back. As a kid, my dad was always very involved in soil and water conservation at the state and national level at that time, so I grew up with it, so it's just part of who I am. We do cover crops, and I saw a study today that Practical Farmers did that said after 9 years, the people that participated in the study are really starting to see some great benefits. And we've seen great benefits, especially as dry as it's been in recent years. It really helps the water holding capacity of the soil. And so my hope is we can get a lot more people convinced to use cover crops. We do no-till because we believe in taking care of the land and minimum tilling. We raise hogs for Nyman Ranch, which is niche porch, so they're antibiotic-free. They are certified humane now. Nyman has a contract with Amazon now, so we'll see where that goes. And we have oats, cows and calves, and do some beef cattle crop rotation. So that's my farming story. Dietitian story. Been a dietitian, done about everything in dietetics, so it's been really rewarding career. I'm not at Hy-Vee as much as I used to be, but I'm still there. It's a real good balance with the supervisor role. So in 2014, I was a representative for the Iowa Dietetics Association at that time to the National Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics so I was the delegate, and every year they have a special area they study, and that year was on hunger and food insecurity. And so they really challenged us to go back to our own communities and see how we could make a difference. And so at first came back, was able to work with Hy-Vee, the schools, and a minister in town that was very interested in the same topic, and the carry-on bags program was started. It's in its 4th year, it's going very well. And we have 295 bags as of last night's bagging a week going out, so the need is clearly there.
Can you explain a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, carry-on bags it's a backpack program. You might have heard of those that some schools do. That's a trademark name, so we can't call it backpack. So that's why it's called carry-on bags. But it's basically food that's sent home. There's no qualification because we didn't want a lot of paperwork. We didn't want any barriers for people in need. And so it's really donation supported. There's no administrative costs or anything like that. So we have different volunteers groups from the community that come help bag. There's a carry-on bags board that kind of helps behind the scenes to make sure the products get there, and they are ordered through Hy-Vee with, no extra cost or anything, just kind of a pass-through.
Can we just say that a lot of kids eat at school, free and reduced lunch, breakfast and lunch, and on the weekend there's no food for them at home sometimes. That's why this program exists.
And how this started was she's a speech specialist, media specialist, and I believe she's at Washington School now. And she overheard some teachers talking about a child that hadn't eaten all weekend after they had gone home. And so that's how this kind of started. She started talking to one of the pastors in town. I heard about it just because I'm interested in topics. So got then some people from the schools involved. So it's an example of how just having a conversation can result in something. So then about a year, Fred.
Quick question. Any kids who want to just pick up a bag?
Yes. Yeah, there's no qualification. And the bags have the challenge for me as a dietitian is, of course, I want everything to be as healthy as it can be, but reality is it has to be non-perishable, so that really limits. We have started because to give a $5 voucher or a $10 voucher occasionally so that they can go and purchase fresh produce or milk. So that's something new this year. It doesn't happen every week. It kind of depends on how the budget looks. So that's carry-on bags, and about, depending which year, anywhere from 42 to 46% of the kids in the Fairfield district are at free and reduced rate meals. And so then I started just thinking more about hunger after this was going, and thinking, what can I really do locally? Because I'm involved in a lot of community activities, and everybody has hunger somewhere on their list. But it's not the priority except for carry-on bags and the Lord's cupboard, of course. And so that's how the Hunger Dialogue started. And so I got some AmeriCorps Vista volunteers who are with the Iowa Hunger. And they came down and did a program and invited kind of the Wellness Coalition, which morphed into Blue Zones for a while. And those folks and put it in the paper. And I almost canceled it because I only had 5 people register, and I thought, no, we're going to hold this. Well, 15 people showed up, so that was really encouraging for the first meeting. And so then from word of mouth, anybody can come. We meet the 4th Thursday at Hy-Vee. Right now I'm trying 11 o'clock. We met at noon for a while, but there's some people, just if I want Laura Cohen there, it has to be at 11, and it's helpful to have her there because of her Lord's Cupboard connection. And she really has a pulse on what's going on and the needs. So that's the reason right now for the 11 o'clock. So what a dialogue is, it's simply a conversation. The Hunger Dialogue isn't even a formal group. So that's the beauty of it. It's just people from throughout the community that talk about a topic. And first we did a little, like a SWOT analysis and that type of thing to really kind of see where we wanted to go. And then it kind of, we got 2 key projects started. One is Come to Supper, which is the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month. And one of the local pastors in Fairfield at First Lutheran volunteered to have it at that church. And I know there's some people here that have participated in it. If you ever want to volunteer, just call the First Lutheran Church office and say there only takes 4 or 5 people. You can prepare the food and bring it in, and there's been about 25 to 50 people that come routinely, and a lot of the people, if there's enough food, I know he's talked about one of the children that goes back 3 and 4 times to eat, so it's really kind of touching. He would like to take it every week, so I'm not sure what the status is. I asked him to give us an update at this month's Hunger Dialogue on that, so we'll see where that is. And then the other thing Faith will talk about, which is the Youth Garden Project. And so we'll hold that for when Faith really gives an example of what can be done with growing food. And I really, some real IELTS stories. I've helped people with their diets, and one day I was helping a gentleman, and he just looked, one of the things I ask early on in the conversation is what's the first time they eat during the day, because oftentimes people will skip breakfast. And the first time I ever heard this answer he gave me, he goes, I can only afford to eat once a day. I'm like, oh, okay. And then we had, a whole different conversation. And this was somebody that was just over the line for getting any assistance, on Social Security, but because of medication costs, that took a big chunk of the income that was available. So by the time you pay for housing and those types of things, there wasn't much left for food. So then, through the Hunger Dialogue, we've compiled some resources, and Mark Dwyer's was on a committee with that, with Sylvia's last name?
Sylvia
Richards.
And
then Gloria Brown helped do that. We've got a good start on that, and since then I've got some more resources, which I'll share if we have time. And I'm going to go through these slides probably fairly quickly. Bob, where are you? Okay, one of the things we try to do with the Hunger Dialogue is present some education information, and we've had a real variety of people. We've had people from Oskaloosa come talk about what they're doing. And Pella, there's a new group in town called the Cornerstone Community Well. It's just starting. It's a house on 5th Street. The Ministerial Association is starting that. It's by appointment only, but there's a number that people in need can call, and they'll schedule them in. And it's they just got their 501c3 nonprofit status, so you'll start hearing a little more about them. But I ran across a study on Alice I went to the Hunger Summit, and the information was presented there. It was in Des Moines this fall. And I got all excited about this because it's the first time. This is 2016 data. It's from Jefferson County. And the difference between this and others is that it's really shows what the cost is of living in Jefferson County. And so we'll get to that. But what is Alice? Alice is a former working poor. We hear that term, and often what it is asset limited, income constrained, and people who are employed. It's just that they can't make enough to make ends meet. And so they earn more than poverty level, but less than the basic cost of living. And so for those of you that like data, it's over 300 pages long. There's all sorts of data. Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I feel, that's my perspective, that is like a contradiction. Because if you earn more than the poverty level, but you cannot afford your cost of living and food, you're still below poverty level. You're still miserable.
And the poverty levels really haven't been updated since, I believe, the 1974.
Which is ridiculous.
And so many of the programs go like 2 or 3, but still, yes, they are behind. You are
So there's
correct.
still a poverty level. There's a contradiction.
And so the data sources, it measures the actual cost of living in the county and the wage rate. And so another source for those of you who like data is feedingamerica.org. You can click on that, go to Jefferson County, and you'll find out that there's approximately 13.3 or 4% of the total population that's food insecure, and 19.9% of children in Jefferson County. Also, just search ISU Extension and Outreach on poverty, and they have some data that Iowa State puts out. I'm not sure how often that's updated, but it's another source for people who enjoy lots of data. So why are there so many Alice households? So most of the jobs, 68% in Iowa, pay less than $20 an hour. Many pay $10 to $15 an hour. And so the cost of living, especially since 2008, we all know has increased faster than wages. Lack of affordable housing, we know that's a problem in this area. And so many of the households earn 44% of what is needed for financial stability. And many people think that SNAP, which is the former food stamps, will meet the needs. They're really a short-term program. And I learned at the Iowa Hunger Summit that most people are on SNAP about 3 months or so, just to help them get on their feet and get connected to some resources. So some of the consequences is living in substandard housing. And I talked to the middle school guidance counselor. I really try to find out how many people are homeless in our town. And I get two answers. One is there's a lot of people that couch surf, but they do that by choice. And two is he calls them almost homeless, people that really struggle with rent and they may have to move frequently. But there's no real solid data. It can vary. Substandard child care or no child care, so one parent cannot work. And we are actually working on that. There's a daycare project going on. I'm on the Early Childhood Iowa board, and that's going to be funding a feasibility study so that we have some data to see what our daycare needs are. We know that there's need for infant care, and there's about 910 approximately 5-year kids younger than 5 years old in the county, and about 600 daycare slots available. And what happened was 2 or 3 years ago, the federal government raised the requirements for in-home daycare, so many of those people quit providing it. Or else maybe their kids grew up and, they didn't want to provide. There's multiple reasons, but we're just trying to find out exactly what's out there now, because we're not sure. And then when people don't have enough food to function, it can lead to poor health. And also, another consequence is lack of health care or no car insurance, so they can't get to work. So here's Jefferson County. So 14% of people are in poverty, and 25% make up the Alice. So a total of 39% are in poverty and Alice. And so some of the other counties are in the same level as far as the overall poverty in Alice are Appanoose, Montgomery, and Wapello. And there's 5 counties in Iowa that have higher numbers: Davis, Decatur, Story, Wayne, and Woodbury. And as you can see, many of those are in southern Iowa. Jefferson County rates poor in all 3 indicators: housing affordability, job opportunities, and community resources. And I know there's a lot of potential, again, with this daycare project, because that helps employers, which helps retain employees. It's just a snowball effect. So that's in the very beginning stages. This is new information that I've been learning from some of the mental health committees I've been on. Yeah.
Aren't the numbers that you're showing there, they're actually higher in the city of Fairfield itself, right?
Yes, in the Alice report, it will give you the city of Fairfield, Lockridge, Packwood, the small towns around too.
It goes up to 44% in Fairfield, right?
I don't have that memorized right now, but Fred, you've looked at it recently. 44%?
That's what I...
Yeah, I believe you are right with that, because the rest is 39, the average.
It's huge.
That's a lot.
So one of the things, and I went to a Bridges Out of Poverty meeting in Fort Madison about a month ago, and it was very inspirational. There's a teacher in the West Burlington School District that's doing a lot of work, child by child, and he was telling us about they had a 6th-year senior that graduated from high school, and it's because they were able to help this person who otherwise would have dropped out, ended up in generational poverty, and now he's a manager at one of the stores in town. So there are programs out there. I'm trying to learn as much as what we can do to see what we can do here, because what I'm hoping we can do is maybe have the hunger dialogue evolve into more of a poverty dialogue, because we really want to learn more so we can figure out how can we help break this cycle. So adverse childhood is one thing, and Prevent Child Abuse Iowa, there's information on their website, but basically it takes emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, substance abuse in the house, incarcerated family member with mental illness, domestic violence, separation or divorce. And if people have 4 or more of those, and there's 14.5 Iowa adults report that, that really sets a person up to struggle. And so I'm just giving you a brief overview. There's lots more information about that, but I hope that we can have some opportunities to learn more and share that as a community. And one of those is 2 free opportunities coming up. One's Connections Matter. It's a community initiative that invites attendees to explore how the connections we make in life impact our brain's ability to grow. And this is free. And one of these, that one was last Wednesday, and it also will be again February 13th at America Hotel. And again, all this is on Prevention Child Abuse Iowa. And then one opportunity is tomorrow afternoon at the Arts and Convention Center. It's called Resilience. It's a movie about the biology of stress and science of hope. And so it's the biology behind all these ACEs, or adverse child effects, and what professionals are doing to help and to combat some of the social and health outcomes that often result from them. So there are some opportunities. There'll be another opportunity in February to view that film also. So there is some work going on. Any questions? Otherwise, I think it's probably about time for Faith.